We had seen that the mountains are a good indication of the way the gradients are formed and hence how the river flow systems flow. So let us apply this here. So what are the kind of mountains that we have as of now is the Himalayan mountains, Himalayan range. So these are to the north of the India plate. So that would mean that the gradient would be southwardly and all the rivers would be flowing southwardly. It is not so. It is southeastern. Why is that? That's because the Himalayan mountains are not just on the north part, they are also on the northwestern part. So obviously, if it was left only to this part of the northern part, it would be flowing south. The fact that you have Himalayan ranges on the northwestern part also, obviously there is a southeasterly tilt, and that is why majority of the rivers are made to drain into Bay of Bengal and flow southeasterly. Now this is how the situation is today. Will it be the same in future also? Obviously, as long as the India plate is crashing into the Eurasian plate and it is getting lifted, Himalayan mountains are, their height is increasing even as we speak. Very little, some say millimeters, some say centimeter in a year, but for sure they are moving up. So when these mountains height is increasing, that means the India plate is getting lifted and lifted. So when it is getting lifted, that means the gradient will be increasing. So millions of years into the future, the river flow system may have water gushing forcefully than it is now, but for sure they are all draining into Bay of Bengal in the normal general southeasterly direction. That is about future. What about past? So you turn the clock backwards. So when you turn the clock backwards, obviously the height of the Himalayan mountains would be decreasing. What is now 8,000 meter? You go a few million years, it will become 7,000 meter, go again 6,000. So like that, you will keep turning the clock backwards. You will reach a stage where you would be standing on the northern side of the Indian plate, and you could see possibly the Tibetan plateau on the other side of, on your opposite side. That means the Himalayan ranges are not existing. For this, you will have to turn the clock around 50 million years back. That is when the Himalayas were just about to form. This is like the India plate is just about to come and hit into the Eurasian plate. This doesn't mean that these plates are floating on sea. No. These, as I had said, these plates have always been in touch with each other. It is just that the collision that was happening undersea, where one plate was getting subducted into the other, but when the continental exposed surface above the sea level, that when they meet, that is when there is a resistance, and hence the folds, mountains are formed. So in the past, when you are standing here at this edge, you would want to look back and see what kind of river flow systems that you have, because we said river flow systems are decided by the mountains, because they kind of tell you which way the gradient is going to be. But now you have negated Himalayan mountains by going back 50 million years. That means this gradient is not available anymore for the river flow systems to follow and drain into the Bay of Bengal. So what was the situation then? So we need to, when you're going back into the past, how far back are you going to go? I have divided them into three main epochs. One is the present, where you have the India plate as of now, you have Himalayan mountains. So when you turn 50 million, when you turn the black clock into the past 50 million years, so this is where you find where you do not have Himalayas. Now you have Himalayas, Western Ghat and Eastern Ghat. But if you go to 50 million years back, you would just see Western Ghat and Eastern Ghat. Western Ghats are these and Eastern Ghats are these. So you go back. As I said, the India plate broke from Gondwana and it has been traveling along the northeastern direction since this broke 180 million years ago. And by the time it reached it, this was 50 million years ago. That means this migration was there for around 130 million years, 130, 120 million years. It was migrating. And as I said, if you still go back, the Gondwana itself was a part of the supercontinent called as Pangaea. And if you go much, much back forward in the past, there will be a time when 4 billion years ago or 2.5 billion years ago, that is the range said by the geologists, that is when the India and the Antarctica plate were together or they were colliding each other. So you see what are the mountains present in these conditions. So when you have the present conditions is Himalaya, Western Ghat and Eastern Ghat. And when you go to the 50 million years ago, the Himalayan Ghat disappears. You go back 180 million years ago, Western Ghat also disappears because this is where Western Ghat is formed when the continental breakage happens. India plate breaks from Gondwana. And when you go back 4 billion years ago, that time even Western Ghats were not there. It was Eastern Ghats only when the India plate was crashing into Australia plate. So these are the three basic epochs that we are going to study. Just to give you an idea, the Himalayas are 50 million years of age, old. The Sahyadris formed 180 million years ago. And the Eastern Ghats, which is these Ghats, are as old as the planet Earth itself. That's 4 billion years to 2.5 billion years. If you see the age of the planet Earth, this is where planet Earth started from. This is Hadean time when there were all just a ball of fire on the planet. You had all volcanic crust. So that was 4.5 billion years ago. And when it started cooling, and that is when the India plate was crashing into Antarctica plate, that was just 4 billion years. So it is like 500 million years after the formation of planet Earth. So this is the river flow system that we have now. If I remove the Himalayas, go back 180 million years ago, what would be the river flow systems on this landmass? And you go back 3.5 to 4 billion years ago, when you do not have Western Ghats, you have only Eastern Ghats, how would the river flow system would be? Let's study those. So when there are no Himalayas here, the landmass is just connected to Gondwana and Antarctica on this side. So this is African side and this is Antarctica side. African side on this and Antarctica side on this. As we said, when the continent of India plate broke away, if you see, this is a cross section. If you take a cross section across the India plate, this is how it is. This is West Coast, this is East Coast. These are Western Ghats, these are Eastern Ghats. The Deccan Plateau itself has got a easterly gradient. And that is how the Western Ghats are going to affect the India landmass. But it is not just Western Ghat. If it was just left to Western Ghats, all the river flow system would have to be eastwardly. But you also have Western Ghat. And they are there much before the Eastern Ghats are there in existence much before the Sahyadris or the Western Ghats. So obviously, since the collapse, since the collision of India plate to the Antarctica is this way, so obviously this plate is going to be lifted this way. So you have Western Ghats pushing it this way and you have Eastern Ghat pushing it this way. So when you have these two directions, and it is not just exactly westwards, see, because of the slope or the angle tilt, obviously the push will be this way and the push is going to be this way. The resultant force which is going to finally decide the gradient would be northwards. Not exactly northwards, but northeastwards. So the river flow system will have to follow that, which means 180 million years ago, between when the India plate broke off from Gondwana and till it reached the Eurasian plate, all the rivers on the India plate were flowing north. We didn't have just one Nile. Almost every river that was there on landmass India would be flowing northwards. That means we had many more Niles than what you could one think of. So when you now go 4 billion years ago or 3 billion years ago, and obviously that is the time when the Western Ghats are non-existent, so the India plate will have a gradient which is completely dominated by how the Western Ghats are formed. So that would be in this direction. The gradient would be in this direction, and then obviously the rivers would be flowing northwesternly. So you can see, to begin with, in ancient times, the rivers were flowing to the northwestern position. Then they changed it 180 million years ago to northwardly, and now you have southeasternly. So what exactly is happening? The river flow systems which were flowing this way have changed their direction 180 degree.